Hey, so welcome to part 2 of the builds tutorial. We're going to be starting to build the body of the character today. If we have enough time, then we might set this up to start the other views, but for now we're just going to focus on the body. So we're on the very outside of our character comp, out where we have the model sheet. You can just select the model sheet right now and go into the comp 1 level. Here we have the head layer, and we also have the layer for the body here that I had just drawn that scribble on. We can delete that one, and we're just put in new layers for each body part we end up drawing. Okay, let's start with the neck. And I might take a second to explain some ways to think about this a little bit easier, I guess. So if you've ever made a push pin like doll before, where you cut out all the different pieces and you put pins in it, it's kind of a good way to think about this. I'm going to lock the head layer so we don't accidentally draw on it. So you're going to want to think, I'm going to turn down my brush size first. You're going to want to think about this so that like each part extends past where you actually can see it. So the neck comes down here, and if you were doing this as a push pin, there'd be a joint right there. And then when we do the arms, they're going to have a joint here. And we're just break this up into 2 pieces for the arms. So this will be one symbol here. And then we'll have another symbol that overlaps and is layered underneath that has a joint here and here. And then there, for this symbol, we're going to just have it overlap the arms a little bit. And the same on this arm. And then when we do the hips, they have their own layer like this. And the legs will kind of come up like this. And so on. So we're just going to keep all that in mind whenever we design what each symbol looks like. And it will all turn out looking right in the end because they're going to be layered over top and underneath each other. So we're going to start with the neck. I know some people like to build everything on one layer and then organize them afterwards. I prefer to organize as I go, so that's what I'll be doing. But you can do what you want, just as long as it works. And you also can pick whatever colors you want, especially if you're doing your own character. You don't have to stick to the ones I've provided for this. So we're going to start by tracing off the neck layer to start with. I had just went back there and selected the line information off of my last line to make sure this matches up. But anything that looks good is fine. And I'm just making the head see-through right now so we can see how far this goes up past the head. So I'm just curving this down into a nice rounded shape, since like it's unlikely we'll ever see that, but just in case we're moving them around a lot and you could possibly see that, you just want to make sure you don't have any sharp edges or anything like a rectangle in there. Just paste that in, the color, and now we're just going to select this layer and turn this into a symbol by hitting F8. Name your layer. I'm just checking that I kind of stuck with my naming convention I had from last time. And you did notice that there was a shadow there, so I'm gonna make a new layer. And there's a couple ways you can do this. The easiest one might be just copy this up, and then on a new layer we're just gonna kind of trace off where that shadow's gonna be with a nice thin line. And I think there we go. So now you can just cut away the stuff you don't need. And if you double click on this thin line, it will select the whole thing. I think I might grab this line here and put it above. So on this line, this layer here, we have the shadow. You can either just go into the color palette and make it like a little bit darker, like that kind of a thing, or you could go like full dark shadow. Just depends on what you like. This is also why I picked my colors before I started this, since I didn't think anyone would want to sit there watching me pick up colors. I forgot to do this one though. Okay, that's good enough. It's a little bit darker. And it's also in 2 layers, so should you ever need to change it or you want to edit it, it's not going to affect the other layer. Okay, now let's just turn that see-through. And let's start with the main body, I guess. Just name that torso. I'm just drawing the general shape. This is going to get pretty repetitive. Also, if you have any ideas on how you'd like some of the other views to be done, I was wondering if you wanted me to speed up anything whenever I'm doing the other views, if it's pretty similar to this, or if you want it all in real time for each view. Okay. Just thinking about what would be the easiest thing. I think we just keep those connected. Because this arm is going to come over. We can just make the arms come over top. Lift that space. Lay them over top. Or whenever we do the profile view, we can just draw this right through. Draw it right through on this side, but leave a gap on that side. Okay. I think I sorted that out. I'll make sure that I explain that clearly whenever I go on, like, actually draw the other views. Just make it like this for now. If we make any mistakes, we can always fix it. I'm just going to turn this into a symbol. And for these big pieces, where the pivot point ends up isn't a huge deal, especially for like something like the torso. It's good to have it right in the middle. For this one, it's not a huge deal because you don't move the neck piece that much. But it would make more sense probably to have the pivot point down here at the bottom or at the top. So you can just rotate it like that. So if you wanted to change it, it's good to change it as soon as you notice is not where you want it. Because once we start doing the other views, we're going to have all the views right in here at the same place. And we don't want to have to adjust, 5 other ones instead of just one. So the torso is going to get layered above the neck. So like that's good. And there's nothing special that we got to do for that. Okay, so let's do a upper arm. This is kind of just like how we did the face. We can actually use the same arm for this and just flip it on the inside. So, looks close enough. At least for this view. I'm just gonna select that and make it a symbol. And then this is where you can adjust where the pivot point automatically goes up here. So you can just pick a spot. And we can make a further adjustment if it's not quite in the right place. So if you've seen that this point started over here, but the pivot is actually where this little crosshair is on the symbol. So just by double clicking on this, it will return it automatically back to where it should be. Like wherever the default position is. Same with this one, if you move it for whatever reason, you can double click and then put it back. So if you wanted to keep this gap here, it might be beneficial to keep the arms layered underneath the body. We can just delete a little bit of this line here and then regroup this. Just remember, groups are never to be on an animatable layer. You can just use them to separate art whenever you're drawing, like on a layer with other paint, but just make sure you don't ever try to animate them. It's a giant mess. So we're going to select this and go to Modify Shape, Modify Shape, Convert Lines to Fills. And you can just drag out the point, and there you have a tapered line. Let's do it again on the other side. There, I was just adjusting the paint here so these two symbols match up a little bit better. I guess we could just make a nice little curve or something like that. Okay, let's copy this arm onto the other arm layer. We're going to bring it over to where we want the pivot point to be. So this one's like right here. Put the pivot point 2 inches up. Like this shoulder. And then we're going to come into here. Make a new symbol. Oh, not a new symbol, sorry. We're just going to hold down Alt and drag this frame over to make another copy of that frame. And then we're going to go to Transform and flip horizontal. Now let's just match this little point here up with that pivot point. Let's just try to go left or right and not up or down any to keep it pretty consistent with where the other one was. If you want to adjust it up or down, you can just do that on this layer here, where you get the outside of the symbol. Also, just make sure everything gets set to loop. You can either do it now or later on once we build the rest of this view. It's fine to just leave it till later as long as you don't forget. Just make sure you do it before you do other views because you don't want to see stuff looping. Okay, and now we're just gonna adjust this joint until it matches up. And this drag. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. We can just drag this out some until it matches up correctly. There we go. And don't feel too bad if there's something later on when you finish the build and then you're animating with it and you're like, oh, this could be a little bit better or easier to use if I change something. That happens all the time, especially once you like get the actual experience of using it. I've done that a lot. It's just whatever works out best for you. It's not something where you should be like, oh, I'm so frustrated, it wasn't perfect the first time around. Okay, so let's build a lower arm that go underneath this one. And depending on what kind of character you have, you could just put both parts of the arms in one symbol. So like you have this as a symbol, and then this part of the arm is a symbol, and they're just on two different layers in here. It's just what I thought might be easier for animating later, but I could also be wrong. We'll find out once we actually test this out. A lot of the arms that I was working on a show lately has been just all one piece. So inside the symbol you'd have this part of the arm and this part of the arm too. And sometimes a hand too. You just would have to redraw them a lot, so it kind of just ends up depending on the show. Okay, and let's just block that and draw this out. At the very least, though, you should still have this and this separated, whether or not they're inside the same symbol. Because it's a bit of a pain if you're like, oh, this arm is very similar to another one. Let's just modify that one, and then you find out all the art is combined into one chunk, and you have to take it apart first before you can make the changes. It's a little bit easier if it's already separated. So you want a nice curve on this joint here because this is going to be layered underneath that hand symbol. And then that way, if you wanted to rotate the hands around it, you won't have any like sharp lines you gotta watch out for or anything. Just gonna check also how wide her arms are over here in 3/4. Just wondering if the grip is getting away from me. Maybe we can make that a little skinnier. Once you have it the way you like it, same thing. I did warn you, it's still a little repetitive. Okay, and I had forgotten completely about where I should be putting that pivot point when I did that one. And the top of my pen just came off. So just 1 second here. Okay. Okay, so you can either fix this now by going and undoing it and making the symbol again, or you can just go in here and move the arm over till it matches up. It doesn't really matter too much because this is the first one like this we've made, but if you've already done a bunch of views, I'd just go back and do it again. So you can see the pivot point's down here, but the spot I put it is up there. You can just go to the transform button, double click to put it over there. But let's make a fine-tune adjustment here and just move this so the pivot point's in the middle of that joint. Sometimes you just gotta fix it like that, like manually. That way if we're animating with it, it just moves from the joint nice and easily. It's not so awkward. Okay, and the handler is going to go over top of this. It's also possible to use this tool here to clean up like these lines and stuff. I just prefer using the line tool because I find it makes less little tiny points that get really bumpy in the lines. And I'm turning on the snapping just so this snaps onto, or it should snap, there we go, onto the tips of those lines. And we're just gonna leave that line in there for now, so when we put the paint in, it covers the whole area. And I'm just gonna adjust where that's located for the joint. Spell in the color. And adjust where this goes. I want to bring this down a little bit. See if we can get this to match up a little easier. And it's kind of the same thing as when you actually go to animate this. You probably find that you'd be adjusting this to match the wrist quite a lot, even if you have a similar hand to one you've already used. Okay, and now I'm going to make a new layer. You just put the tapered bits on that. I'm just going to lasso these bits here. And just make sure you only take a chunk out of the line and not all that fill around it. So I'm just going to select all these and put the caps to none just so we have a flat line to work with. Then go to Modify, Shape, Convert Lines to Fills. And I think for this one we're going to want a sharper look. So match that drawing a little bit better. Okay, now I think I'm just being fussy. Probably close enough for this anyway. Here's one hand. Okay, and let's do the other side of the body, I guess. Stick your hand here. Okay, so I just dragged the copy of the hand over and kind of matched up where that middle point is. Let's go into here. We're going to make a new copy of that frame. And we're going to flip this horizontally. Then just make sure your pivot point's still in the center. And change this to frame 3. And single frame. Okay, and let's do the arm. Let's bring it over, go inside, transform, flip horizontal, and drag it back. And then if there's any little details like the changing the angle that this arm is on, we can just do that on the outside of the symbol. We want the arms on the inside to stay up relatively matched up. What might be actually a little bit better, we can change this from the beginning, is if we go to rollers, turn those on, then drag a roller over. Second, my flash is acting a little weird lately with this. Whenever it goes to place rollers. I think it might be the new version. I'm not sure. So if we match up a ruler like this, it'll give us a guideline to match up all the symbols on the inside of this. So we can just fix the outside afterwards. This would have been ideal if I had thought of doing it earlier. It's a good idea for your arms and legs, so they all stay relatively matched up later on. Oops. The main thing I want to prevent anyway is just from us having a symbol that you have arms drawn on one frame like this and then arms drawn on the other frame like this and like all over the place. Because the closer they are being matched up on the inside here, the easier it will be the transition between drawings on the inside whenever you go to animate. So you're just trying to think a little bit into the future about those kind of things. I'm going to also put those guides in here. You don't have to be super precise on the hands, it's just nice to know where the joint is and that they are relatively kind of similar to each other in the direction that their hands are facing. Okay. I might change some of the line weight up here later just to make sure it all matches on the outside line, but let's not worry about that right now. I mean, or I can thin out some of the other lines. Anyway, let's do some of her legs here. So let's start with the hips there. And I'm going to change the color. Just going to make this kind of rounded. Doesn't have to match up with the shorts perfectly, because that will be on its own layer too. Just try to make it match around the top here where everything connects. Actually, that would have been fine like this. We're not going to see this top bit anyway. And we're also just want to make this match up with that layer here. Like this bit here. Because that part will also go inside the same symbol. Not sure why Flash does that, where everything goes white. This. See, and it went away. It's a weird glitch. Okay, so let's turn this into symbol. The center's fine for this one, since it's not something you're going to be moving around in a particular way, like how you do the arms and stuff. Oh, and I didn't actually put that one on the center. Let's just fix that real quick. Now let's take a copy of just the lines for now. Oops, and make a new frame. And paste that in here. Now we can just delete a whole bunch of lists. Just gonna make a copy up here. make a line there, and we should guide this off. That way, if I want to turn this into a piece of paint, we can just have something easy to go back to. Though it's such a simple line, it probably wouldn't matter. Convert this to fill. Oh, and make sure when you do that, that you lock this layer up here. I did it on the wrong layer. Let's drag your paint around until it matches up. And I'm going to change the settings in the brush here. I'm going to put it to paint behind, which is really handy for this kind of thing. I mean, if you didn't want to do that, you could also just put on 2 separate layers, too. Yeah, I don't think we're going to need that layer. Never mind that. It's a good idea for sometimes if you have like something really complicated. Okay, so that's hips, and this is going to be the crotch layer. And we're just going to bring this up and put it to frame 2. Now we're going to put the legs in, and you can start to see like how that looks. Okay. Let's turn on the snapping and close that gap. And then just paste the color in and delete that. And this is going to be layered underneath all that, so we don't have to really worry about tapering any lines or anything on it. And if you did decide to change the angle, you can do that on this layer. And just make sure everything matches up nice and smoothly, so it matches your drawing. And let's just make the other view of this. Same thing as before. Transform, flip, move this like left or right until it's relatively in the middle. Put this one to frame 3. And then you can make any small adjustments that will help make it match. And I'm just going to adjust those hips again on this side to make sure it matches up with the leg. Okay, and now for the lower legs. If it helps you keep things organized too, you can just put like left or right at the end of each one. I haven't really worried about it too much, but I might end up making it a little more organized. Okay, so just start by drawing a rectangle. And we're just delete all these little points. Then I'm just putting in new points and dragging the lines around until they kind of match up. Then we're just grab the colors and put it in. Okay, so select this, same thing. So this is a single frame. And then we're going to go in here and just drag out a couple of these. Match it up, and then we can always just adjust this on the outside so it matches exactly. Okay, and we're just going to drag a copy of this frame down here. Move it over a little. Flip it horizontally. And then adjust the angle it here. And this will need to come down a little bit further. Oh, and I got the wrong. Just make sure you don't forget to change the frame number. And I just needed to make sure that this comes down further than where that shoe is going to be. Okay, let's put a shoe above each of these leg layers. 2. Well, good enough, yes. Trying to get that as smooth as possible. I think this is the shoe color. Okay, and make this a symbol. And I'm just gonna fix where the pivot point is. Just putting this in as a reminder of, for like later on when we draw other views in, just kind of how it's supposed to be placed. But we don't need to worry about like matching it up completely in our rectangle for the shoes. Okay, and now the other shoe. If you had seen me relayer that, it was because I realized that I had the wrong shoe above the wrong leg. So I was just checking that everything actually was above these. Let's take a look at how this is all going now. And we should add a shadow underneath the character. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the lines and just select black for now. Let's draw a little oval in. Where I want this one centered, where the pivot point is. I guess technically it's called a registration point in Flash. I don't think I've ever heard anyone actually call it that in person though. Okay, so if we go in here, select the black, then go over to your colors, and you can just select the alpha for whatever you want for your shadow. I think I use around like 25 to 30 usually. It depends on... So hold on, maybe I'm wrong on that. Just take a look at what looks good and do what you want. And then you can also test out just like putting a color behind your character to see how that looks. So say they're standing on something that's this really ugly brown color. Oh right, I'm drawing behind this sketch layer, which is a scanned piece of paper. So if they had a background color, you can just use that as a guide for how dark you want this. Like 25 to 30 is probably fine. Just enough to know it's there, without it being like super dark. Okay, the main thing that's bothering me is that the line thickness on the head is not the same as the rest of the thickness on the outside. And you can probably live. I might change that off screen later. Right now, how about I show you how to set this up for the next one. So this is the model sheet. I'm just gonna rename it so I don't get confused. That one can be guided off. It may not really matter unless you plan to export this or something. And then we're gonna extend this timeline here to like maybe 200 frames. Something like that. That will give us lots of space. And then make sure the set is set to play once for the outside. Because then if you have them animated on the inside, you don't have to worry about it not playing because it's set to single frame or looping when you don't want it to loop. And then around frame 101, we're just going to make a frame here. So just hit F6. And this one should automatically be set up to play once from frame 101, and I'm not sure why it didn't do that. Oh, okay. The reason why it didn't do that is because there's no frame 101 in here. So we need to also extend everything in here to 200 frames. I got a little ahead of myself there. And same with the head. So we're going to go in here, extend this to 200 frames. Taking a guess, I missed a layer. There we go. So this would be where if you had left something looping and you had more than one frame on the inside, things would be looking really weird if you're scrolling through there. So if you have things kind of cycling and you don't know why, just make sure all your frames are set to single frame, like in here where you have all these pieces. Okay. So back to here. Make sure this is frame 101. And I'm going to make a new layer just to be a note layer. We're going to set up some notes so we have an idea of what we're doing next time. So this is going to be front. And leave a little bit of space. That should be good. And it's going to select this many frames. I'm holding down Alt and dragging and dropping this. We can just change what that's called later. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 views. But she also has a pigtail that rotates. So if we wanted to get really precise, we could also do the other side of her head. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's start with this, and then we'll just keep adding. One's front, 3/4. Free profile. Okay, so we're going to select that. And I just accidentally closed the label before. So 3/4 back. And the back view. And then we can continue on with the back view, 3/4 back profile, and 3/4 front. Which is just making the opposite view of everything. So 3/4 back, the other profile, and the other 3/4 front. So we can cut this in 150, since that's the amount of space we need. Just double checking everything is right. Okay. And this is where you can see what frame you're currently on. And then this is what frame is your symbols on. Just to make sure that there's no confusion there. Then I'm going to copy this note layer. And we're just going to go and paste this in here. And do the same with the head. It'll help you keep everything matched up. Oh wait, we don't need to do that. Do we? Yes, we will need one in here too. So we have to put different views in here. So that's for the front views. So when we start building the 3/4 view, we're just gonna put the whole 3/4 view in here, profile, etc. And that goes with the body too. So now this is all set up for the next video when we start the 3/4 view. Okay, don't forget to save and save often. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. If you want, you can leave me a comment. I'm kind of curious if anyone's building their own model. Also, I was wondering what you would like to animate with your own build. I was thinking about doing some tutorials on maybe some jumps, a walk cycle, maybe like some easy stuff like weight shifts, or how to do shadow effects on your character. So I was going to use this build as a default build for anyone who doesn't want to build their own at the time. But you could also use your own. So that's just what I was thinking. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you have a good day. If you could like or subscribe, that would be fantastic. And I hope you're enjoying this. Thanks.